This is a tutorial on how to cover a bra for costuming if you want to change the bra color you have to something else. Here's an example of one cup that's already done, and I'm going to show you how to go in and add that pleat so that it fits around the foamed cup and how it looks on the back side. And it doesn't take much fabric to cover a bra, and you basically want a large triangle. To do this, you generally want to start with the corner of the fabric, and you don't have to cut the triangle. I just cut a piece out. It'd be a little easier to see what I'm doing, but you start with the corner of the fabric and you start at the top of the bra and you start pinning in the top of the bra first, so the top of the cup, just as you see me doing here. And this starts to give you the gauge of where that pleat's going to be. So go ahead and start pinning in the top, and that's why you do the corner of the fabric. So if you've just bought some fabric, you just start off with the corner, and then you go in and you pin everything around. And that's an easy way to do it. But I covered up a big section and kind of generally cut it into a triangle, so it was a little easier to show in the video. But yeah, you just start with the corner of the fabric and start doing the top of the cup and pinning it in all the way around. You generally want to cut off all your straps on the bra that you have, so you want to cut off all the straps, and I've kept my cups connected because usually you cover up that area with a decoration, and so I don't ever see the need to separate the cups from the center. The reason why you want to cut off all the straps, as you see, it's easier to pin around when you do. So there you go. You can see that I've kind of gathered it up and sewed it there on the center. And so what we're going to start, we're going to start trying to prep that pleat in. And so you want to go in and kind of work a triangle up underneath, and you want to make sure that it's the same spot as the other cup, and you want to make sure you've got it as taut as possible to make sure that it's where you want it, and when you sew up the actual pleat it looks good. And once you have it the way you want it, go ahead and pin it in. And it's okay if it's a little puffy in the middle. You're going to be sewing it down so it's nice and smooth. So go ahead and start pinning up the bottom just above the wire. And as you're pinning around, you may notice that there's a gap that goes in the fabric. You just start moving the fabric around and repinning the top. But the top you need to pin first because it allows you the guide of where the pleat needs to go. And then just repinning everything makes it easier to fit the top again. So the top has to be pinned first. Even though you might have to repin it, it's the best way to find that pleat and where it needs to go and get the fabric generally set up for it. So go ahead and repin the top now that we've got where our pleat is and everything. This technique is mostly just pinning and pinning until you have it exactly the way that you want it. Smooth and neat over the cup. Now, some fabrics are easier than others. A velvet is going to be easier than a chiffon, which this is kind of a chiffon-based yellow fabric. And a sequin fabric can give you a little trouble, but it'll stick in place easier than a chiffon. Chiffon's going to be one of the harder ones to work with. Any kind of velvet works. So we've got it all pinned in, as you can see. All you have to do is sew it up now. But first things first, I always sew up my pleat. And I'm going to show you how I do that. But first, I'm going to cut all my excess off after where I've pinned, so it makes it a little easier to sew everything on. And because if you have a lot of extra fabric and you don't do this step, it makes it a real pain to sew the actual fabric onto the cup. So once you get it all pinned in exactly where you want it, go ahead and trim it up. You can trim it up even more after you sew the fabric on the back side. And if it's a fabric that tends to unravel, I would suggest putting a little glue on the edges to stop the fraying. So once you've done that, you're ready to start sewing the actual fabric onto the cup. And as I said, we're going to start sewing the pleat on first, and I'm going to show you how I do that. So go ahead and have a needle threaded. There's no particular size I'm working with, just a standard needle will do. And I'm going to take it up through the middle back and find out where the tip top of that pleat is and send it up through the middle. And then I'm going to go in and a little bit before the actual pleat folds over, I send the needle through the fabric and then through the edge of the actual fold, as you can see that I'm doing. And you're going to do that all the way down. Now, I would suggest you choose a color that is similar to the color you're using. Generally, you don't see this because you cover the bra, but if you use a similar color, it's hardly even noticeable. But this is how I go in and sew up that pleat, because I do costuming a lot and it gets covered up, so it's really not that big of a deal. On stiffer fabrics, I find you don't have to do this so much as you do with softer fabrics. You might find that if you use a stiffer fabric that you don't have to do this step. But if you use a softer fabric like this, you will have to sew this down so it stays nice and smooth to the cup. And I just do this all the way down, picking up the fabric just before the fold and then the edge of the fold, the very edge of the fold. And as I said, if you have it the same color as the fabric you're using, you won't hardly notice it. And as you can see, it's a lot smoother. And I go ahead and sew the pleat all the way around the edge of the wire. It gets a little bit more difficult when you start reaching the harder edges of the bra, but you just continue all the way around. And then you want to tie it off. snip the end, and when you turn it over, you'll notice that the seam is right where it needs to be, and it's smooth on the cup. Now you just want to sew the edges, and the thing is you sew behind the wire on the back side. As you can see here that I've sewn behind the wire, and I do it without going through the front of the bra, but then on the top side I sew on the very edge. So you sew on the very edge up until you get to the wire, and then you sew on the back side so that you don't see the seam, and then you sew the center in as neatly as possible. Now that I've done that, sewn everything together, which is pretty simple and standard, you see that the bra is covered, and I've trimmed up the back even more so that it's nice and clean on the back side. And that's how you cover the cups of a bra. Now I'm going to add my straps on last. I'm going to go ahead and decorate my bra, but you can add the straps on before or after. And I'm going to show you how to add those straps on. But I'll show you what pattern I use for adding the straps. As you can see, I've gone ahead and sewed one side on for the halter strap and the base strap. And I'm going to show you that you can add it on before. This is a bedla. I'm going to show you how to create a fast and simple bedla. If you choose to add it on before you decorate, then you sew it on top of your design. And you sew it around if you just want to sew on the straps. They're already there. So that's basically what it would look like if you were just sewing on the straps before you sew it over top. And I'm choosing a halter, and what I used was the Simplicity pattern 2159. It's a good pattern to use. And the Gauzy coat I've used, and I've used the panels and everything, but the tie-offs for the belts is what I'm using for the actual straps. And so I go on the back of the pattern to find where those straps are. So I'm wanting the straps for the larger, and I go in and pull out my paper to find where those straps are for that piece, and it's 11. So I'm going to pull out 11, pattern 11, and I'm going to cut 4 on the regular sides for a front and back on the sides, and then I'm going to cut 2 for the actual halter strap, and I fold it in half for the halter strap. So I only need 1 piece for the halter strap, and I fold it in half. But the side straps are 2 pieces sewn together. And you should have some basic sewing skills, but that's how I make the straps. And I sew them on the underside, as you can see. And I do double layering on the sewing it up so that I don't lose the strap while dancing. You don't want to accidentally fall out, which would be absolutely mortifying. So I'm going to take my side strap, and I'm going to line it up with the very top edge of my bra, that you can see that stark edge from the top, and work from the bottom. And you'll know where the previous spots were. They have like an indentation because you cut it. You just generally know where to sew it on from there. So find your spot and go ahead and hand sew on your strap from the top corner. And I just sew down one row all the way, and then I go and I'll do a second row, and I'll show you how to do that. And I'll report you back to this video for covering a bra for the bedla. And if you're doing the teardrop panel, I'll point you back to this to show you how to add straps and do all that kind of thing before adding the panels if you want. It's good to know just how to cover a bra so that you can add whatever you want to it, and it can be a challenge sometimes. First time I did my bra, I had quite a time figuring out how to get that curvature in, and once I figured out how to do that, I've covered several bras at this point. So this is generally how I've done it. I'm sure there's other people who do it a little differently, more actual concrete of style rather than just kind of floating around with it. And so you see me doing the second row to make sure that this is not going to come off. Because this is a more fusion bra, I'm going to just tie it, but if it's like a bedla, then you want to add the, you want to try to measure out where you need to add the hooks for it to hook on. And you'll need another person for that to help you find where you need to place your hooks on your straps so that they sit right. Okay, then you tie it off and you've sewn on your side strap. And there you go. Now we're going to sew on our halter strap, and you're going to kind of angle it in, and I'm going just past the center, and I'll go about 2 inches from the corner with it. So you'll see I've gone 2 inches from the corner. You can choose to measure this if you're really into the having it exactly the way you want. I tend to guesstimate a lot of times. But you want to angle it in because it is a halter. And you'll want to double sew the area so that it doesn't come off, just like I did the side strap. So go ahead and angle it in, and once you get it where you want it, you can either pin it in if you want, but I'm going to hold it in place, and I'm going to sew it in. And remember, you want to do 2 rows so that you don't have to worry about the strap popping off. And I'm running out of thread, so I'm going to have to rethread my needle, and I'll do the second row just like I did the side. But you see, you'll want to do it at an angle. And do a second row. And so that's generally what it looks like. And I'm going to tie mine, but you can add the hook and eye kind of thing to hook it to you, or you can choose to tie it. I'm going to tie this one, but add your hook and eye, and there's how you cover a bra. You're done.